uncomfortable truth that not many people who move to Italy like to admit. And as you know, on my channel, I'm very transparent about the things that not many people like to talk about when it comes to living here in Italy. And this truth is something that when you first move here, I don't think you experience. You probably don't even think that this will be something you will ever experience. But the longer you spend living here, it slowly creeps up on you. And one day it hits you like a ton of bricks. And you realize that this feeling, this emotion that you had maybe back in your own country can also be felt living here in Italy. Now, I live in arguably the most beautiful part of Italy. I'm biased, I know. I've always lived in South Italy. And, you know, South Italy encompasses Amalfi, Sicily, Puglia. Like, it's absolutely beautiful as a region. And I will tell you that even though I live in such an incredible part of the world, I still experience this emotion at times. And I wanted to talk about what this emotion is today and how you can overcome it if you find yourself in a similar situation. Now, I've been living here in South Italy for, 7 years this year. And honestly, like when I first arrived, it felt like more of an adventure. And the longer I spent living here and I got myself into a routine and I started to work and I was doing all the kinds of everyday responsible habits and actions, I started to notice that I would experience this feeling. And the feeling that I would experience is that of boredom. Now, it almost feels blasphemous to admit this on this channel, that you could actually be bored living in Italy, but kind of tied into that is the fact that this is everyday life. Like, you know, so many people go through life here in Italy almost afraid to admit that there can be defects in this country. There can be things that aren't quite right or things that were different to what you expected them to be, because this is reality. Living here in Italy, in my opinion, is no different to living in any other country around the world. It has its pros and it has its cons. And so feeling bored living here in Italy, I think, is a very natural reaction to what life can bring here, because it really depends on your circumstances. Now, as all of you know, I teach English here in Italy and I work extremely hard. I work really long hours, and it does mean that during the week especially, it doesn't really free up a lot of time for me to do anything else. And I have gone through periods living here in South Italy where I felt that all I do is work. And that has led me to feeling bored with my routine and bored with my life and kind of wanting to shake things up a little bit. You may have noticed back in Palermo, I was recording a lot of content indoors. Now, tied into that was the fact that, you know, I was feeling a little bit disillusioned with life in Palermo, I think, at that point, but also I was just working relentlessly and I didn't have the mental capacity, the energy, or even the time to go out and film and do the kinds of vlogs that I know so many of you love to see. And so this is why I wanted to talk about this today, because boredom is a real thing, and I don't think it's something to feel ashamed about. I don't think that you have to feel guilty for the fact that you have moved to another country and you are experiencing feelings that you may very well have felt back in your own country, because this is the natural process of settling in and setting up your life. You are not here on a holiday. Every day is not going to be full of adventures and fun and sightseeing. You have a normal life that you have to lead, and as such you are going to be feeling those normal emotions that anybody in a similar situation would feel. But I do think there are some steps you can take to alleviate boredom in some way and to help you to appreciate more this incredible life that you are building for yourself, because it is a dream life. And I know that I'm extremely privileged to sit here and say that I have created this life for myself here in Italy. There is absolutely no denying it. And there is not a day that goes by where I don't look in the mirror and be like, wow, you actually made this happen. But of course, on the other side to that, I am very aware that my life is a normal life. I don't live a retired life. I don't have every available day free. I have to work and I have to have a routine. And so naturally, I've got to take extra steps to prevent boredom from kicking in, because it really, really can. And the first thing I think you've got to really be honest about is how you are going to be able to move about in your everyday life. Because for me personally, I am starting to realise that I need to drive now here in Italy. I have an Italian driving licence. It was one of the first things that I converted when I moved here, because I did not want to take the Italian driving test. But I have always been a little bit wary about driving here because the driving standards can be really hit and miss depending on what part of Italy you're in. But now I'm realising that to drive somewhere is going to free up my life even more, give me more freedom, give me the ability to do more during my day when I have some gaps, some time available and I don't want to walk somewhere or to take public transport. You know, I can just hop in a car and do what I need to do in a fraction of the time. And it also means that I'm not limited as to where I want to go. Having your car is your sense of freedom and independence. And it's something that I really appreciated when I lived in the UK, to be able to drive to wherever I wanted to go. And I never needed to worry about how I was going to come back at the end of it. You know, I had my car, I had my independence. So this is something that I'm starting to learn radically change my experience living here in South Italy and help me to make the most of the time that I do have during the week, where if I don't have a car, I'm a little bit more limited as to the things I can do because I don't have like huge chunks of time available to me during the course of the week, but I have enough that if I had a car, I could actually go and do things. So this is the first thing that I think if you want to try and alleviate boredom living here in Italy, you've got to be honest about the way that you can move around and the types of things that you can do as a result. Secondly, I think you've just got to make time for yourself. Like, life is not all about work. I am very, very much a workaholic. Like, I can be super, super honest with you. Like, when I want to do something, I do it, and I literally throw all my energy and attention into what I'm working on. And it does mean sometimes that it consumes a lot of my free time. But I know now that starting this new life again back in the Salerno province has shown me just how important it is to invest time into yourself and to actually enjoy your life where you are and not to spend the whole time working. And so I'm in this process now of navigating my new routine and setting up this life for myself here, to the point where I'm like reevaluating a few things, reevaluating how I spend my time during the week, reevaluating how I can dedicate more time to the things that I want to do or into myself in terms of self-care, self-love, like, you know, finding hobbies and passions and interests. These are the things that help to reduce boredom in your life. And as much as I absolutely love filming videos, in a way, it is like a task to do. I need to find something else that is separate from this, that doesn't feel like it is connected to work in any way, shape or form. It is purely a passion project. Because YouTube for me started off like this, and as I've built my audience, and you're growing by the day, thank you, I find that there's a lot more that goes into my videos now, from the planning to the editing to any kind of social media work that I do during the week. I'm working on building a course at the moment, so I'm really busy with that as well. All of this together means it takes up a lot of time, to the point that it could be like a job. And so that's why I need to find something else independent that doesn't have that same kind of feeling. So it's about tapping back into my personal interests, into my creativity. And that's exactly what you have to do when you start living here in Italy. You've got to find the things that light you up, that do not feel like work. This is one of the most important things. You've got to find time for yourself. And I think also you've got to stop comparing yourself to other people. Like, this is something that I can be really guilty of sometimes. Like, social media is a beautiful thing, but it can also be a real pain, because you look at what other people are doing and instantly you feel like you are inferior if your life doesn't reflect what other people's lives look like. But I've got to start being more present and appreciative of the life that I do have and the things that I am doing. Because for another person looking at my life, they may have a similar feeling in terms of feeling not as good, because this is the way that life is. We all feel that our life isn't good enough, but to another person, it is more than they could ever imagine. And so this is why I have to be really conscious of not comparing myself to other people, because when you do that, of course, you naturally feel like your life is boring. You naturally feel like you don't have as much fun as other people, because we all know social media is an edited version of our lives. It is usually just the best parts. And so, you know, when you're comparing yourself against somebody's best parts, well, naturally you're going to feel like you're lacking in some way. And so this is something that I think if you want to avoid feeling bored, you need to stop spending as much time on social media looking at other people and spend more time really appreciating what you have got going on in your own life. And also, I think a big part of it is adapting to life here in Italy. adapting to the flow of life, adapting to the fact that your life might look different to how it did a few years before, adapting to the way of life here, how people do things. And I think this is really, really important as well, because I sometimes find that I feel bored if I am comparing my life now to what some things I used to do when I lived back in the UK, for example, or if I'm comparing my life to, I don't know, the life of somebody who lives in a completely different country. Again, it ties back into looking at what other people are doing, but also it ties into the fact that, you know, when we are living our life in this country, we need to be very focused on what it is that we are doing and be less focused on everything else. And we need to be more appreciative of the things that we have got going on in our own lives. And so this is something else that I'm working on at the moment, like really trying to be grounded where I am in my life, adapting to life, you know, going with the flow a lot more, not trying to be as rigid as I've always been. This is not easy, it's a character trait, but I'm trying. You've just got to be like this more in life. You've got to go with the flow more, and I think you appreciate your life more as a result. And I think the final thing that I want to touch on when it comes to addressing this feeling of boredom is that there's no shame in admitting that you feel bored. Like when you admit there's a problem or you admit that something doesn't feel quite right, that's when you can take the steps to change it. People who try to stifle this emotion, people who don't want to admit to other people that they've moved to Italy, created this life, and actually, you know, it's not quite what they expected, or, you know, it's not playing out in the adventurous, glamorous way that they thought it would. I think when you try and stifle those emotions of, like, you know, disappointment or boredom, whatever it may be, you make the situation worse. When you shine the light on a problem and you address it and you hold it up and be like, this is how I feel, that is the point where you can change and you can actually transform your experience into a much better one. And that's the point where I'm at the moment. I recognise that some days I do feel bored here. I recognise that my life feels very regimented sometimes, that I work maybe too much, if I'm honest. And I recognise that, you know, like there is more that I need to do. I need to build on like existing skills that I have. I need to find time for myself and build out some creative hobbies that don't require me to feel like I'm doing a job. I need to drive more and to give myself that extra sense of independence. I need to kind of put myself out there more as well, tied into all of this, I think, and help myself to lead a more fulfilling life. And I need to make the most of exactly where I live. You know, like they say, you don't really appreciate where you are in the same way that an outsider does when they come to visit your city or country, whatever it may be. It's this, I need to appreciate exactly where I am. Like, I live in a beautiful part of the world, and it's time that I got out there more and I really appreciated exactly where it is that I live. And I stop comparing myself and telling myself that, you know, other people lead a more fulfilling life. Boredom is a natural human emotion, but when you shine the light on that and you recognize it's a problem, that's when you can change things for the better. I will see you in the next video.